Today I am building this challenge coin display for a veterans event at Southeastern State University. This is going to be auctioned off in a blind auction, and I'm very honored to have been asked to build this for this event. This coin holder project is going to be made out of solid oak. The first step is to take this 1x12 oak and just trim off these rough edges. That way I can be assured that this project is going to be square on all four sides. And of course, I want to make sure it has nice clean edges as well all the way around. It's going to make doing the layout and the rest of the work a lot easier. Next, I wanted to take the bottom 3 inches of this board and be able to do the 2 coin inserts plus the cutout with the word Southeastern. This coin holder is going to sit up at a 20-degree angle. Therefore, these slots have to be cut at a 20-degree angle also, and I want to cut them about 1/4 inch deep. To be able to accurately do that, I set up the bevel square where it was exactly at the 20-degree angle. I laid out these lines 1 inch apart, and then from there I made these slots 3/16 of an inch. That way I have accurate spacing from the top all the way down to the bottom, and I have a consistent depth as well as the thickness of these slots. From here, I can just take it over to the table saw. At the table saw, with these lines all marked, I'll be able to set the blade at 20 degrees and easily be able to cut these slots. With the table saw now set at 20 degrees, I want to be able to cut the top and the bottom at that same 20-degree angle. So with everything lined up, I'm going to run that through, and that will give that 20 degrees. Now I'm not going to change the blade angle at all. To do the bottom edge, I just need to slide the fence over to the other side of the blade and set it up the same way, and again, the blade angle does not change. And then I can run that through, and that will give me the 20-degree angle at the top and the bottom. That way, when this completed coin holder is sitting on the desk, the front and the back edges from the top all the way to the bottom will be vertical. So many times I see different ones that are not, and I just don't like that look. I think this gives it a much more of a professional look. Next, I'll slide the fence back over to the other side of the blade, and I'll set it up to be able to cut each of these slots. And of course, the pencil lines themselves will be the guide that I will be following to be able to set this up to be able to easily run it through. This is a very safe way to be able to cut these slots, as the saw blade itself is completely protected by the wood. You do have to be careful when you come on the end of it, because of course the blade is going to be coming out from the end, so you want to make sure that your fingers are well away from that blade. I did make a small adjustment to be able to put the saw blade on the second line to be able to run that through. And that will give me my 3/16 inch slot that I'm looking for. With the first one completed, I'll now repeat this process for the remaining slots that I need to cut all the way down to the bottom. This first slot is really your test slot. You want to make sure that the depth is right, that the thickness or the width that you cut, the 3/16, is accurate. And once you know that everything is correct, then you can move on to the rest of the slots that need to be cut. So after a very repetitious process, all of the slots are cut and they look fantastic. So with this part done, I need to move on to the sides. Now for the sides, I need to make 2 of these triangles. And what better way to do that than with the tapering jig? But not just any tapering jig. It's an extremely simple jig that anybody can make just from a few scraps. And that's what I do anytime that I need it. To make this real simple jig, all I need to do is find a piece of material out in my wood bin that's a long straight piece. And this works fine. Now the good thing about it is, this is a premium 1x6, and I don't want to do any damage to this. So all I do is just set the fence where this will run right along the edge of the saw blade. And then on the triangle piece that I need, I just extend the line down on each end so I know where it needs to go. And I can place that right here, line up the points, and then take a couple of pieces of scrap material and just hot glue it in place right along a pencil line that I've made. And I have a tapering jig that I can cut these 2 triangle pieces out of. Now this hot glue will come off of this wood very easily, so it's not going to damage it. And I have a line right here. So all I'm going to do is just put a little bit of hot glue on here, line this up on my line, press it down, Make sure that it's clear here because this is where the fence is going to be running. That's down. One more piece. Now this can extend over this way. Now this can extend as far out as we need it to. So I'm just going to run a little bit of hot glue here. Again, line it up right on the pencil line that I have, making sure that it's clear. Push it down. And I have a tapering jig that I'm ready to be able to cut now and get those two triangle pieces done. Now I'm not sure what happened to the footage of cutting this first triangle, but I want to give you a close-up look at it. And I have that perfect cut right on that pencil line. And I'll take the next piece, slide it in. A tapering jig such as this really doesn't get much simpler. And then the good thing about it is you don't have to have a dedicated jig. All you have to do is have a straight piece of wood that you can use. And quite frankly, now that this project is done with cutting these two pieces of triangles, I'll be able to put this 1x6 pine back into storage and ready for another project. The last piece that I need to cut is the back. Now this piece is 3 5/8 of an inch from the long point. Now yes, I did cut this with a 20-degree angle already, so that is done. Next I'll lower the blade and make that cut. That 20-degree tapered angle is the part that's riding right along the fence. Now I have this marked right here, and I just marked it using the coin holder itself. Then I'll set up my stop. That's going to be perfect right there. So I'll make the cut. So this is a good example of measure once and cut two boards. That way I can have the exact measurement with that stop in place to be able to get two with the exact same size. Now it's time to head back to the computer and do the design work for this 100 and for the lion logo itself. So to start with, I'm going to do the 100. Now this is with two different bits, a clearing bit and the detail bit. But I like to start out using the detail bit first, and I am using the bottom left-hand corner to be able to cut this out. In that bottom left-hand corner, I make sure I set that as 0. I'm using a 60-degree bit to be able to do the detail pass. I like doing that first. Once the detail pass is done, then I'll come back with the 8-inch downcut bit and cut out the, in essence, the roughing pass. Cut out all of that bulk material. With the detail pass completed, I come back and load the file now for the roughing pass or the clearing pass. Now this is with an 1/8-inch downcut bit that I'm using to be able to do this. And again, I'm following my checklist, verify that I have the correct file, and then I can hit Run Job. And at this point, it will clear out all of that bulk material. And as you can see, it's looking quite nice. Now that it's all finished, it will take us a little bit of sandpaper to be able to clean up this. But all in all, that looks really good, especially for dealing with oak. Now, I did use the clamps as well as the glue and the tape for this first piece because there was just so much material to remove. Now, as far as the next one, when I'm cutting out the lion, I'm only using a 60-degree V-bit. And for this, I'm only using the glue and the tape method to be able to secure this. I'm using the Starbond medium glue to be able to hold this project down. In addition to that, of course, I'm using the accelerator. Now, it does not take much glue at all. And I do have a link in the description below should you want to purchase the Starbond glue or any of the other products that they offer. I'm removing the 1/8-inch downcut bit, and you can see this is the ER11 collet that I have. And I have this set up where this will match these types of bits for the 1/8-inch bits. Then I have a separate collet that's set up for my 1/4-inch bits. And that way I don't have to change out these each time. Now for this lion, I'm going to be using a 60-degree V-bit. And of course I'm using the bottom left-hand corner to be able to have that as my XY0 position. And as you can see, there's really no position to be able to put a clamp. And that's one of the major reasons that I use the glue and the tape method. Now the logo itself is going to be over in this area, and it's going to be cutting off of the block of wood. So I've opened up the file, verified that this is the correct file, and you can actually see the full logo there. But it's only going to cut a portion of that on this triangle shaped piece of wood. Now granted, this logo is actually cutting much larger than the block of wood. So in essence, it's cutting air at times. But it was actually easier to do this than to try to go in and make all the different edits for this logo. Plus, in the future, I already have this logo saved, so it will be easy to be able to apply this to other projects in the future. Now that the lion logo is completed, you can take a close-up look at it and you can see it's looking quite nice. A little bit of sanding again, and that's all that's going to be necessary to be able to get this ready for the epoxy. So after a quick sanding, I want to be able to seal those pockets with the polyurethane, and this is a water-based polyurethane that works really well. Now I just coated inside of this pocket really well, and I'll let this dry. Once this is thoroughly dry, I'll mix up the epoxy and fill these pockets with a dark emerald green, which is part of the school colors. Oak is a very porous wood, and if you did not seal this wood before applying the epoxy, it would soak in and it would cause a real problem. So it's very important to be able to seal all of the pores in this oak. Now I'm going to put 2 coats on. I'll put this first coat on and really let it soak into the wood, let it dry, and then I'll come back and I'll put a second coat of this polyurethane on there. Now this is a water-based polyurethane, and that works just fine. I have had really good success with this product. I'm going to be using this alcohol ink by Let's Resin. Now this is an aquamarine color, and I'm also going to be using the micro powder. Now this is a dark emerald green by the Starbond company. I'll be mixing these two together to be able to come up with a color that's really close to the school colors. I'm also using the Let's Resin tabletop epoxy for this. One, because I have very little of this left. There's only a couple ounces in here. That will be perfect for this project. This is a 1-to-1 ratio. You'll have part A and part B. I'll also have a link in the description below should you want to check out this product or any of the other mini products that they offer. Now I have 2 ounces here, which actually is plenty, but I only have 2 ounces of part A and part B. So I'm actually going to be mixing a total of 4 ounces, which is more than what I need for this project, but we're going to pour a few little other things with the excess. Up close you can see I'm right at the 4 ounces. I'm getting all of the epoxy out of this. So there's 2 ounces of part A, 2 ounces of part B. This is also a real good indication that I have been very accurate with my measurements on past projects. I'm adding the alcohol ink and the micro powder at this time, and then I'm going to stir. I want to make sure that I stir this for a good 3 minutes, and make sure that you scrape the sides and the bottom as you do this. Now stirring actually will create bubbles, so now I want to set this down and let it sit for a good 3-4 minutes, and sometimes a little longer, so that the bubbles will come to the surface and pop. Now I put a piece of tape around this portion to create, in essence, a little dam. This lion actually cut off of the wood itself, and by doing so, if I just poured the epoxy in there without the tape, it would just run right out onto the table. So this is very important to be able to create that little dam, if you will, to be able to catch these little small pieces down in here and catch those edges. Blue tape works extremely well for this application. When I pour this epoxy, I want to be able to actually overfill these little pockets. The reason being is that the epoxy will shrink a little bit. By overfilling it, it makes it where I should be able to sand it smooth. Okay, the epoxy has been sitting long enough and most of the bubbles have gone. The next thing I want to be able to do is get these little corners first and be able to force that epoxy right down into those little areas. Once that's done, then I can go ahead and pour the larger areas. As I pour this, I want to be able to pour a very thin stream. That too will help reduce the bubbles. I also used a popsicle stick to help move this epoxy around and get into those little corners and the little crevices that need to be filled. Now this part doesn't have to look pretty. What it has to do is really take care of the coverage. You want to make sure that all of these pockets are completely filled, and as I said in the beginning, I want to overfill these so that when the epoxy shrinks a little bit, the epoxy itself still will be above the surface of the wood. And that's all that matters, because when I sand it, I want to sand it down where it's completely smooth. Now this epoxy is self-leveling, but by using a popsicle stick, it actually makes it a little bit faster. And yes, I do get a little impatient at times, but this way I can go ahead and spread it around and make sure that I have the coverage the way that I want it. But again, this is a self-leveling epoxy. I have to be real careful when I'm pouring the epoxy in and around these letters. There are so many little small areas that need to be filled. You really have to take your time and make sure that you do have each of these little pockets completely covered in between these letters. And again, I'm going to overfill that, and that's one of the things that actually makes this project a little bit easier. I have plenty of epoxy to be able to work with, and I can move it around and make sure that it gets in and around all of these letters. Well, it's the next morning, and the epoxy has dried, and you can see that it is definitely above the surface of the wood, and that was the goal. So it's now time to be able to sand this. Oh, and by the way, these are the little letters that I decided to fill with that extra epoxy. Now the first thing I want to do is move this blue tape, and you can see that the blue tape peels off very easily, and it did exactly what I wanted to do. It created that little form so that this epoxy was able to flow right up to the edge without running over. When you sand the epoxy, please use the dust mask and the hearing protection. So now it's time to be able to sand. I'm starting out with an 80 grit paper, and I'm going to switch over to 120, and then I'm going to end up at the 240. Now this is not an exact science. If you have paper that's a little bit different grits, that's okay, but I think a 60 grit or an 80 grit paper works real well to begin with, and then work through the different grits of paper. Now I'm using some alcohol on a paper towel to wipe up all the dust and to take a look at that epoxy, and it looks really, really good. The end result is that the epoxy is completely level with the surface of the material. Using the alcohol to wipe down this does several things. It allows me to get all that fine dust, it dries really quick, and allows me to inspect epoxy. Now it's time for just a little bit of hand sanding, just to finish up all the surfaces that hadn't been sanded. Now it's time to dry fit everything together. I want to make sure that it fits exactly the way that I want it, that everything fits absolutely perfect. Once I know that that is done and I don't need to make any adjustments, it's time to glue everything up. And yes, you never have too many clamps. I put glue on everything, clamped it up really good, and now we just have to sit back and wait for the glue to dry. It's time now to put the finish onto this project. I want to be able to make sure that I get all the dust off of it. I'm going to blow off the dust, I'm going to wipe everything down, and then I'll be ready to put the sealer on. Now I'm going to be using a polyurethane water-based sealer that has worked real well. Now this is satin. If you want high gloss, you can do that. It's really up to you. But I'll put 2 coats on, sand in between, and this is what it looks like when it's finished. I think this turned out to be very pretty. Now this is going to be auctioned off at a blind auction for a Veterans Day event. So I think the proud owner of this is going to be quite happy when they receive it. The money that's generated from this goes to help veterans at Southeastern University. So I think it's a very worthy cause to be able to do a project like this, and I'm very happy that I was asked to be able to create this project for this blind auction. I want to thank everybody for watching this video today, and I hope you help a veteran this Veterans Day. Again, thank you for watching this video today, and to all the veterans out there, thank you for your service.